2, 1. Good morning, everyone, and hello and welcome to Food for Thought Thursdays. And each time I'm interviewing an interesting person, somebody that I know is doing some great stuff in the world, that has a heart, that has a similar commitment to the planet and to the honoring of the personal honor of human beings. And so today we're speaking with Dr. Trina Hinkley. Welcome, Trina.
Hi, Brenda. Thanks for having me.
Trina and I have known each other for quite a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And have been supporting each other in our own professional goals. And Trina is in Melbourne. So is it raining down there?
It was raining a little bit this morning, and now it's just still and sticky and overcast and a bit gooby, really, to be honest.
Right.
You know, I'm sure you know what that feels like in Sydney.
Oh, yeah. We're just dealing with floods and everything. So.
Yeah.
So let's start with a little bit about you. I'd love to know, because you're talking about change and you're talking about the things that get in the way of our change. And, you know, we have an audience of mainly midlife women, 40 and above. And so things are a bit different to a conversation when you're 15 or 19 or something like that. So just tell us, how did you come to be passionate about this area of specialty that you are?
Yeah, so maybe 25 years ago, I did a certificate 4 in fitness and training, so became a personal trainer. And as part of doing that, I had to do some research around who was active and who wasn't active, and, build a case for a business model and all that kind of thing. And so I looked at, well, who in Australia is active and how many people in our population are active. And I saw that only a third of our population, a third of adults, were active enough to meet the national guidelines as they stood at that time. And I was a bit flabbergasted because I've always been really active. I really enjoy being active. I can't imagine not being active. So it was, and all of my friends, because of course we associate with people who are like us, all of my friends were active. So it was, well, what's going on with this? And that sort of led me on this journey to try and understand, in different groups of people, what are the things that help them be active or not. Led me into an honours degree, led me into a PhD looking at early childhood and behaviours in early childhood. And then I sort of went, okay, well, now I really understand the things that influence whether or not they're active. How do we actually change that? So that was where I got interested in the change piece is, so you've got something and it's happening, but that might not be what you actually want. How do you move to something that you want? So I started looking at all of the academic, scientific literature around that, around the process of change and all that really nerdy stuff. At the same time that I was doing that, I was really immersed in a whole lot of spiritual processes and programs. So I've been working with them probably for 20 or 25 years. So these two things were going on concurrently. So I started seeing, well, there's these theories around change and there's these levers that we can pull. And then there's all this other stuff that actually really supports it as well. So just seeing that really nice, I guess, kind of cohabitation is the word that's coming to mind, not quite right, but let's run with that, where these two sort of fields can actually merge really nicely to really support people to actually make change that they need. And I find when I'm working with my clients, if you just tell people the theory and go out and do this, well, that's nice, but nobody does. But if you start giving them the tools to do that and helping them embody that change in themselves, then they can start making change on the outside.
So you've obviously had a passion for this, for your own. I imagine there's been a driver for your own transformation as well. And I think, with bringing in sort of spiritual stuff, you can't, as they say, you can only take your clients as far as you've gone yourself. So where are you, you know, I know this is a very broad question, but, you know, where are you at in your life in terms of your spiritual understanding? And, you know, I know that's, I'm not sure quite what question I'm asking, but, you know, that just take us away from the theory for a second and give us a, you know, practical example perhaps.
Yeah, so maybe what's coming for me to sort of talk to first is a little bit about my journey, my personal journey over those sort of 25 years as well, if that's okay, just really briefly. So I, at the time just before I went into the spiritual development work, I left my husband. I had no money, no job, no home, 2 small children, no qualification, I had nothing. And I packed the kids in the car and I drove away. And that was really the trigger for me. It's like, you know, I'd grown up thinking, well, I'll grow up and I'll get married and I'll have kids and it'll be lovely. And of course it wasn't. So that was the trigger for me to go, okay, this story that I'd bought for all of my life up until that point, this is rubbish. There has to be something else. And that sort of really started me on that journey, I suppose, or the adventure, I like to say, of discovering myself and who I am and what mattered to me. And I guess I've done that in multiple ways over the years with multiple different people. And I think one of the things I really believe in is just to try stuff, because you don't know what's going to resonate for you until you try it. So I think of that process of change and transformation as going into a dress shop and trying on dresses that maybe you've never ever worn before and seeing what they look like and how they feel. So there's a lot of, you know, I guess the last sort of 5 or 10 years I've come to a lot of somatic experiencing and using those sorts of processes to really help me and the people that I work with. So try the dress on, see how it feels when you move in it. How does it feel? When you interact in different situations, how does it feel? And sometimes, you know, you've got to buy the dress and you've got to take it home and you've got to wear it a few times before you go, oh no, actually that's not me at all. So I guess for me, it's been kind of this process of a little bit of trial and error, and really coming to trust my body and much more checking in with my body. So now if somebody asks me a question, I don't know, oh well, do you want to go on a date? Let's say somebody asks me a question, do you want to go on a date? And I might stop for a second, so take that little pause and come back and just go, how does that feel? You know, do I get a reaction that goes, ooh, or do I get a, oh yeah? So it's that, you know, that's where I've really got to with that. Does that sort of answer your question?
Yeah, it really does. And it makes me want to ask you, you know, what are the typical blocks and barriers for people having, because we have to change ourselves or at least grow or heal in order to overcome the things that are stopping us from having what we want, right? So what's your philosophy on creating a life you love? You know, how what do we have to overcome for that to happen?
Inertia of staying the same as we are, really. So I think, you know, that's a lot about when the pain of staying where you are becomes greater than the pain of change, is when we start to think, okay, we need to make a change. So we need to get to that point. You know, you hear all those stories about people hitting rock bottom, ending up in the gutter, colloquially speaking, before they actually make a change. I think there's a lot of that around. I think that, you know, there needs to be some sort of awareness, some sort of almost awakening that this actually isn't working for me anymore. And that was where I got to with my marriage. And then I think after that, it's Sometimes it's knowing what to do. I think it varies a lot with people. Sometimes it's knowing what to do. Sometimes it's having the environment to support you in the process, so the people or the physical environment around you, because that can be a really big barrier. And self-love is huge, I think.
So I've been, stepping up in my business and realizing that my comfort zone rubber band, I've been pushing against it, and or maybe not pushing against it, but that I want more than I don't want to just settle with what has been habitual or what has been the status quo for most of my life. I want to invite new scary experiences into my life. So this rubber band has been being stretched. And of course, the analogy that the more you stretch the rubber band, the greater the pressure to bring you back, right? So how does one, I'm using myself as an example, how does one deal with even the family around you, or the holding you back or not liking you, that pullback? How do you suggest we deal with that?
One of the things that I like to use, one of the processes I like to use, is what I call a one-step plan. So it's recognizing that those things are pulling you back. When you see, okay, this is pulling me back, I don't want to be here anymore, I need to stretch further. Thinking about what are those things that are pulling you back, and what's literally one thing that you can do to maybe take some of that pressure off. So I think sometimes what we do is we feel that pressure and we get a little bit overwhelmed, and we might get overwhelmed because there might be pressure coming at us from different sources to stay where we are, and there will be. And it's just all too much and it's too hard, or we get overwhelmed by just the force of the pressure. Sometimes we think about, oh, well, all of these things are wrong, and then we go and try and change all of them all at once, but that's overwhelming as well, because then you're trying to do 15 things all at once, and that's just not sustainable. So I like this idea, and I'm not the only one to use it, it's all over the place. I like this idea of it. There's a one-step plan. You make a plan to do one thing that's going to start addressing the issue that you've got, whatever it is. And in your case, you might go, well, there are 3 different people who are trying to push me back where I am, and there's something about my workspace that's not great, and there's something about my clients that aren't working for me, and there might be all of these things that you identify. So, and then just going, well, let me just deal with the workspace one first, and just dealing with that, and recognizing that the others are still there, but just putting them to the side and just focusing on that one thing. So I think that that's a really good way to start. I love your rubber band analogy. I think that's really, really nice.
Yeah.
I think about it as sort of like 3 concentric circles. So you've got your comfort zone where most of us stay most of the time. And then you've got a middle layer, and then you've got what I call the OSC, or the oh shit zone. So to make that change, you need to be getting out of your comfort zone into that middle space where the magic happens, but not so far that you go into the OSC, because that's where you get overwhelmed.
Yeah, and not just overwhelmed, but frightened.
Yeah.
It stops me from sleeping, and I start to worry, and some of my default not so good coping habits kick in, and then I just want to get out of that discomfort, and then back to comfort zone.
Yeah, that sounds pretty normal, Brenda. And
Well,
I think another thing that's really important there is not being too critical of yourself, because we are going to fall back, and that's part of the process of change. It's this stretch, contract, stretch, contract, stretch, contract. So it's knowing that there is a contraction that's going to happen as part of the process, and that's okay. And just being really gentle with yourself as part of that. So doing whatever you need to do to nourish, not the sit and eat a whole tub of chocolate ice cream kind of thing. But
damn.
well, if you do that, then the next day go for a walk in nature, or giving yourself those tools or those opportunities to really be gentle on yourself when you're in that contraction period, knowing that it's going to end.
So I love chocolate ice cream, by the way, but
sorry.
So do you have any tips on, because I follow a little bit of astrology, not a lot, but I know that the Virgo, which I am, is critical by nature, and
Me
it can
too.
be yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it can be a strength, or it can be a strength and a weakness, and that those of us who are really hard on ourselves, that's being self-critical, right? And then it's almost like we don't want to soften, because it's the being hard on yourself that's trying to, that feels like it's, I have to be hard on myself because that's going to get me forward, and that's going to help me get out of, or I'll whip myself into success kind of thing. So do you have any tips on how to be gentle with yourself, or when, or like, how do we do that? Because sometimes it's not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy. I totally agree. I'm also a Virgo, and my inner critic's very loud, and spent many years in academia, which is a career of rejection and criticism, and, so it was embedded as well. I think there are two things that I would mention to that point. One is, and I work with some of my clients around this, and I recommend that they get create a grab bag of self-care activities if you want. And that can be a physical bag, or it can be a photo board, or it could be a list. It can be anything that you want it to be. And in that grab bag, they put all the things. So you've got to do this when you're in a good space, when you're in a feel nice about yourself space, So in that grab bag, you put all the things that really nourish you when you're feeling really bad, or just a bit average even. And I sort of think about it that in terms of things that you would do on your own. So that might be, you might love gardening, or you might love sitting on the beach or swimming or whatever it is. So there are those things that you do on your own. And then there are the things that you do with other people. So maybe there are certain friends that are really good for you if you're feeling really down, and they really help you come back up again. There are always those people that just by being in their presence, you feel better. So it's those people. It's not the people who reinforce all the crappy stuff. It's the people that you actually feel better when you're near. So if you create this kind of grab bag when you're feeling really good, then when you're having a down day and you're reaching for the chocolate ice cream and you want to eat more than just a nice serving, then you can go into the grab bag and just go, I need something to look after myself, and have a look what you've got and choose an activity. It could be colouring or painting or lying on the grass staring at the sky. It doesn't matter what it is. It's those things that make you be a bit gentle on yourself and take you out of the headspace that you're in, because it's that getting out of your head that you really need to do. So things where you're connecting with the earth are really good, but whatever it is that nourishes you. So that's one thing. That's the things to be nice to yourself. The other one is setting up like a bit of a dialogue, I guess, with your inner critic. So I go through this process, and I started this process a long time ago where I named my inner critic. I asked her what her name was, and she told me. And then I just started having a bit of a conversation with you. Who are you? What's going on for you? Why are you so critical of all these things all the time? And of course, that voice comes from a place of wanting to protect us. It's critical because it doesn't want us to get in a situation where we might be hurt, or we might be made to look a fool, or, you know, whatever it is that we're afraid of. So then I sort of got to know her a little bit as, I mean, she's a part of me, but I could get to know her kind of as that individual part of me, if you like. And then I got to the point of saying, okay, well, I'm not going to say her name because, you know, people watching might want to do this and I don't want to influence anybody. I got to the point of saying, okay, well, lovely inner critic, I hear what you're saying. I acknowledge that you're trying to protect me. Right now I need to do this. Please go and sit over there on that chair in the corner. And sometimes I put gaffer tape on her mouth if she's very insistent. And then I give her a time that she can come back and talk to me if she needs to, because then there's opportunity for that critical thinking, that critical voice to come through, which is really important for us to harness and celebrate, especially as Virgos. And so making a time for that was, you know, it's a really important thing. And these days I actually don't hear from her very much anymore, which is such a relief.
You can use your discernment that comes from critical analysis for more positive things. So I remember seeing a coach years ago, and she got me to name my inner critic too. And I honestly can't even remember the name. I haven't gone down that. It's a nice reminder. So thank you. I will remember her name. So we're running a bit out of time. What kind of work do you do, Trina? I mean, I know you're a coach, but can you tell us a little bit about the work that you do with clients? And who you help?
Yeah, sure. So mostly I work with high achieving women who want some sort of change in their life. So it could be a professional change. Sometimes they're taking a break from their career and looking at other options. It could be a relationship change, or it could just be that, you know, that point that I said that I got to all those years ago of there has to be more. So for a lot of women, it's that kind of question. There has to be more. So there's a lot of stuff that comes around that, self-doubt, inner critic, all of that kind of stuff. But this idea that there's something more. So I work with them in a one-on-one environment. I don't have a structured program. I work with women and some men as well who I work with them from the place that they're at. So the tools that I bring from the 3 streams that I work across, and I named a couple of them already, the academic stuff, the spiritual stuff, and I also have some practices in Indigenous Earth connection. So I bring the tools from all of those streams that really work with the client in the place that they're at to achieve the change that they want. That's probably it in a nutshell.
Oh, marvelous. Well, thank you so much. And you have a website?
I do have a website, theexpandedself.life, and I think we'll pop it in the chat.
We will pop it in the chat. Yeah. Terrific. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
All right.
Brenda.
Well, wrap up words, our you know, like a little tip for our audience in terms of 2022 and what it can be about, given what's going on all over the world right now.
Yeah, I think the thing that comes through when you say that is self-empowerment, and if you want change, you have to change something.
Yeah, if nothing changes, right?
Yep, exactly.
All right, well, thank you so much. I'm just going to stop recording.